Antonio Garcia Pascual, chief economist for Southern Europe at Barclays Capital, joins us live now from the bank's London offices. Good to see you. So what does the new government need to do to restore confidence in Spain?
Surely policy action can help, and I think the government is going to move along three fronts. It will basically work on banking, bank restructuring. It should work on fiscal by consolidating basically the path that the previous government set up. They need to reach basically less than a 3% deficit by 2013. And they will also need to work with the whole political and difficulties of the relationship between the center and the regions, and that's kind of a thorny issue for the government.
Do you think that these reforms will insulate the country from contagion?
It is difficult. These reforms are necessary, but at this point we think it's a little bit too late. The reforms are nevertheless necessary, are important to stabilize the country, but the ECB should also help stepping up the bond purchase program.
How worrying is the prospect of a vacuum, a month-long vacuum, but when Parliament reconvenes? Basically, it means that the new government can't take over until the second half of December.
Indeed, the Parliament resumes on December 13th, so there's here a few days. However, I think these days can be used in a smart way by laying out very clearly what the agenda will be. Remember, there are important topics that will still remain to be addressed, which is fiscal consolidation, restructuring of the banks, a second round, and also they may also want to touch on structural reforms, labour market reforms, and those are difficult issues that need to be laid out very clearly.
So what exactly does the government need to say on those issues, on fiscal consolidation, on spending in the regions, on restructuring of the banks? Just how extensive do these announcements need to be to sort of calm the markets in this interim period that we're now in for the Spanish government?
All the details, as you know, they're still lacking. The government has made statements along these three lines, so we would like to see basically what kind of fiscal measures they're planning for next year to meet the 4.4% deficit. We would like to see a clear agenda when to pass the organic law to basically come up with a fixing of structural deficits.
Do we have enough clarity on what Rajoy is going to do about the three big challenges facing Spain right now, the unemployment rate, the banks, and of course the deficit? Do we have enough clarity for borrowing costs to come away from the levels where they're at now, which are thought to be unsustainable?
No, not yet. I think this is the priority number one for the coming days, just before the Parliament resumes on December 13th. They need to give us clarity. What does it mean, more flexible labour market? Are they going to go for a single type of contract? Are they going to go for collective bargaining at the firm level? The same can be said for fiscal. The same can be said for bank recap. They need the specificity, and that's still lacking.
It's David here. We spoke just last week about the bank recapital or the bank restructuring that needs to take place. How far does it need to go? There is some talk about setting up a bad bank.
I think whether it is done through a bank or an asset management company, or it is resolved within each one of the banks, this is more secondary. The critical part is that the portfolios, the real estate and commercial real estate and construction and developers are fairly valued, and the write-offs actually are done, and then with that recapitalize.
So you want to see how much more recapitalization do we need to see with regards to the banks, and is there even enough transparency about their exposure to real estate losses?
I think transparency has been enhanced quite a bit, because every bank right now has to disclose on a quarterly basis their exposure to the more problematic, which is construction and developers. Now the important is now to put it at fair value, to actually write off what needs to be done, and put the additional capital, which we estimate is in the order of magnitude of an additional 30 to 40 billion. That's around 3 to 4% of GDP.
All right, and let me then ask you about a slightly separate issue. On Wednesday, the European Commission is set to release its long-awaited report on the issue of Euro bonds. Antonio, what are you expecting to see from that?
Well, as you see, the press have already been hinting at three different alternatives. One of them actually includes sort of full-fledged Euro bonds. Here the difficulty, of course, is how far, how quickly are the large two governments, France and Germany, are willing to push for that. I think the reforms seem to be actually quite interesting, and path-breaking is right now a political decision, which entails then domestic decisions at the constitutional level, and that is tough.
All right, Antonio Garcia Pascual, Chief Southern European Economist at Barclays Capital, thanks very much.